Good evening, everybody. It's Monday, May 9th.
Monday, May 9th. No, Mosh, we're very close to your 40th birthday.
We are. I have 2 weeks left before I turn 40.
We have to enjoy these 2 weeks to the max. Well, we did yoga today. That was big.
Yeah, we did a little yoga to kick off the week. Hi, everyone. Everyone who's joining. Thanks for joining us for our second Monday in May live. Al, we've been doing this for almost 16 months now. Monday nights.
It's exciting. We love doing Mondays.
Do you want your Monday night back, though? Do you want your Monday night back?
No, you know what? I love interacting with your
with the peeps
community. Yeah. I think it's just ingrained. Like when people try to make plans with us on a Monday, like no, we're busy.
Can't make plans on a Monday. Though Monday's like normally a low-key night. You've had the weekend. You're kind of like, you just got through the first day of the week, etc. As we were saying earlier, some days are about being productive and some days are about just getting through the day to the next day, right, guys?
Where's everyone tuning in from? Tell us. We see Atlanta.
Yeah, where's everyone live tonight? I know that. Yeah, I got a note. I was getting notes from people in Alaska, Al, because I posted that starting tonight in New York City, you're not going to see a sunset before 8 p.m. And the Alaskans were all like, 8 p.m.? How about 11 p.m. sunsets? Though some parents were DMing me and being like, that's a nightmare to like put kids to bed.
Yeah.
It's so light outside, 11 p.m.
Have you ever been to Alaska when it's light out so late or 24 hours?
I've been to Finland in the summer.
And was it like that?
Yeah, they had Finland in the summer was like 11 p.m. sunset and 3 a.m. sunrise.
It's crazy.
So you only had like darkness for like 3 hours.
Your body clock gets so thrown off. Okay, so let's say some of the people are from
What
Arizona, we got Long Island, we got Northern California, we have Minnesota in the house.
Northern Virginia.
Pittsburgh, LA, Colorado, Australia.
We got a good combo. Australia, where it's like Tuesday afternoon.
Boston.
Hope you're having good lunch over there in Australia.
Hawaii.
Yeah. We got a number of time zones covered here tonight, Al.
Yeah, blackout curtains, people said.
Yeah.
Blackout curtains.
Brazil. We got a Brazilian in the house.
Oh, wow.
I heard from a couple people in the Philippines. We want to talk about the Filipino election at some point. I got a few questions, but Brazil, I know you guys have an election coming up as well. And then somebody has notes here on Laser Wolf, by the way. Al.
Oh, what'd they say?
Somebody wrote, so we ran into a couple of you I should say, spotted us at a restaurant. We couldn't find a table there, so we went nearby in Brooklyn over the weekend called Laser Wolf.
It's Michael Salavanov's new restaurant.
We'd heard good things, and somebody says, JRoss766 says, I was underwhelmed by Laser Wolf. You didn't miss a thing. You didn't miss anything.
Oh, wow.
Just FYI.
Interesting. Well, we love Cafe Mogador down the block.
Holland, Michigan, Tulip City of America. Currently tulip time in Holland, Michigan, Al. And we were looking at some nice tulips in...
That's actually great to know. I never knew Melissa was from Holland.
Holland, Michigan. The last time I was in Holland, Michigan was in high school. Because if you drive from Chicago around Lake Michigan, you'll hit Holland over there on the west coast. Huge Dutch population. In fact, you guys were represented by a congressman of Dutch origin, Pete Roskam, for a while, who chaired the Intel Committee in Washington. And Holland, Michigan, you guys have a college there, Hope College. I did a Mall UN conference, Alex, in high school at Hope College in Holland, Michigan. That is a fact you didn't know about me.
No, I did
not
know that about you.
Melissa, I haven't been back to Holland, Michigan since then. I hope you guys are doing well over there.
Before we jump into the news, I just want to let you know that Magic Mike said he's watching Mo and Al from his niece's softball game. They should learn not to schedule things during Mondays with Mosh. Yeah,
a lot of people need to learn a lot of things. Magic Mike attended the Janet Jackson concert over the weekend and sent me a video of his view. Congrats, I hope you enjoyed yourself, my friend. Melissa Budas, expensive ass Christian college, she says, of Hope College. All right, San Francisco, we got everyone covered tonight. So there's a bunch of things going on. Would say probably half your questions are still related to all things abortion and Roe v. Wade, though there were questions on other things. There is a bit of breaking news, by the way, as we begin tonight, slightly different than last week's breaking news. This is the case of the corrections officer Vicky White and Alabama inmate Casey White. if you've been following today, late today, they were spotted in Indiana and arrested. As apparently they were making the arrest, Vicky White, the corrections officer, by the way, Vicky White, Casey White, no relation, but apparently they had some sort of romantic relationship going on. She helped sort of break him out. They were on the road through several states for nearly 2 weeks. She apparently shot herself, self-inflicted gunshot wound during the chase or thereafter. I haven't seen details on it yet. There's an announcement tonight from the hospital that she has unfortunately died from her wounds. So we will never get to hear her story unless she's written something or left some sort of video evidence as to why she did what she did in terms of getting Casey White out. So she has, per the announcement this evening from the hospital, that she has passed away from self-inflicted gunshot wound. It appears Casey White is still, the inmate, is in custody this evening. He, by the way, was serving a 75-year sentence for a number of crimes and is set to be facing yet another trial for another murder. And the two of them have been on the loose for a while, and that's what we know. So, it's a crazy story. There were multiple getaway cars.
It's not the first time this has happened before in my lifetime.
It's deserving of a Netflix show at some point.
But don't you remember this just happened? I feel like this in the past.
Like a corrections officer and a inmate fell in love and escaped together.
Yeah, something just happened in the past 5 years, I think.
Well, there's definitely been a couple inmates jailbreaks in a love interest.
Maybe.
I don't know. I watched enough Orange is the New Black where I don't know. It all
confuses.
Together.
Yeah. Pentabulous says, do they know for sure if it's self-inflicted?
That is the announcement from the authorities. I've seen that in multiple places. Of course, she was on the road with a, convicted felon who faces murder charges. So I guess you're right to be skeptical, and we'll see what comes of all of that. Liz Bell Couture says Lifetime movie about a similar situation. And yeah, there's been multiple of these instances. In fact, there's some corrections officers who follow this account who are I can't believe there's another one of these. And I guess even within that community, they're just shocked by seeing these types of stories. So we'll see what happens there. But that is the breaking news tonight. Then we get to the latest from Washington, which has been a lot of talk, basically split between talk about inflation and talk about the kind of future of abortion in the country. By the way, we're still 7 or 8 weeks out from the final decision of the Supreme Court, so it's still technically up in the air as to what will happen. The likely decision is probably what we saw leaked or a version of it. Unless, of course, one of the 5 justices, particularly Barrett or Kavanaugh, who are probably the closest to potentially going with Roberts for a middle ground solution. So there's 6 conservatives on the court, 5 per that early February decision leak are set to overturn the Roe v. Wade precedent. Roberts, the 6th conservative, says, how about we find a middle ground here where we uphold the Mississippi law that bans abortion after 15 weeks, but still keep the Roe v. Wade precedent. By the way, the political leak wasn't the first leak in terms of, it was the most significant leak, but there was an earlier leak to the Wall Street Journal in late April that indicated that Roberts was trying to get Kavanaugh or Barrett to come over to his compromise solution, saying this would be too drastic to eliminate the precedent altogether. That there was basically kind of a tug of war going on over those justices. Of course, if Roberts can pull one other, you only have 4 justices for overturning Roe, which means the conservative majority would uphold Mississippi but not overturn fully the Roe precedent. So I guess that is still a possibility, depending on how much power Roberts has, or whether Kavanaugh or Barrett might side with him on that. Go ahead, Al.
Gaynor Lubo says, do you think they may be swayed by public response, even though they say they wouldn't be?
It's hard to, officially, they're not, right? Officially, we're justice of the Supreme Court, we answer to the law. They have to consider, what's going on. In fact, some conservatives, it's hard for them not to consider. Some conservatives might tell you, and observers of the court might tell you, that through the years, they've always sort of paid attention to what's going on out there. In fact, Alito and others have mentioned the fact that while other laws, where they overturned precedent, quickly became popular, Roe v. Wade never became overwhelmingly popular by their definition. Now, if you do look at, most polls, the majority of Americans, 2/3 of Americans, believe that abortion should be legal in some ways, right? Either fully legal or with some limits. There's only about a quarter of America that believes abortion should be banned in all circumstances altogether, which is then what's leading to, discussions in each of these states as to what exceptions should exist for abortion.
Jean asked, any word on who/how it was leaked?
No. What's interesting about the leak investigation right now, and we did a little bit of this in the newsletter on Friday, is that Roberts is keeping it internal. So the Supreme Court has their own internal security service, the marshals. And so there's the head marshal. And the FBI and others have been like, yo, we can help you with your leak investigation. Roberts is like, we're keeping this thing internal. I have the marshal in charge of this, former military higher up. I forgot her rank, but she runs the marshal service. She's going to do the investigation. It is clear that, Roberts is going to try to keep this internal. They're probably going to fire that person. The name might come out at some point, but there's totally a chance that we might know for a while who the leaker was. More and more, based especially on the Wall Street Journal leak from the previous week, right now the gut on most people is that it was conservative who wanted to lock in the 5-4 majority. While there were some initial indications, I've certainly got notes from people who are like, it was a liberal, and, some on the right are like, it's a liberal, and right now it appears, the prevailing wisdom right now, especially based on the journal leak, is that someone on the right was concerned about losing Kavanaugh or another justice to Roberts, and they wanted to get it out there. Who knows? It could be anybody. I have got a couple of you who keep writing in that Ketanji Jackson might be the leaker, and I'm like, how could she be the leaker? She has no access to anything on the court. So, guys, enough with that theory.
First of all, I just want to say your brother is on, and he just bought you a badge.
Oh, thanks, Yoni, for the badge. My brother in Chicago. If you want to, just one way to support this account is to buy a badge, bottom of the screen.
Okay, you have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Gaynor Lubo said, isn't overturning a past law unprecedented? And then Kate G said, but you're not overturning law, it's overturning precedent.
Right. So, first of all, there have been precedents overturned, right? Like, typically it's in the more progressive way and not in the other direction. For example, Brown versus the Board of Education overturned the separated but equal precedent. In this country for nearly 100 years, post-Civil War, we had a precedent that it was legitimate under the Constitution to have separate drinking fountains, separate schools, separate sections of restaurants for Black Americans and white Americans. Brown versus Board of Education overturned that precedent. So you have seen precedents overturned in that direction, and that's what you've seen a lot over time, because remember, the Constitution was written in the 1700s, late 1700s, so there's been amendments over time. There have been a lot of Supreme Court cases, and so precedent has been overturned. In this case, you have a precedent from 1973 being overturned in a rightward slant in 2022, potentially. So it's a more rare situation in this case. To the previous discussion, conservatives would tell you, well, it never became overwhelming in the same way that civil rights became more overwhelmingly popular. And that's an argument that those on the right would make there. At the same time, you do have a lot of folks who are like, the right to privacy existed for a long time, and leaving it up to the states is, not acceptable, and this has been around for a while. It was a 7-2 conservative white male justice majority, including conservatives, that overturned this. But remember, guys, this is a 50-year campaign by conservatives. Even in the 70s, it wasn't a huge religious issue, and it really kind of the combination of religious and politics in the 80s, under Billy Graham, Pat Robertson, etc., really made this a movement. And the pro-life movement, the movement to overturn Roe, is what would happen in this June if that case prevails, is really a 40-year campaign to get judges on the court, etc. And so, if you're somebody who opposes that or is concerned about what the court's about to do, be prepared for a multi-generational, multi-decade fight to bring back those rights. At the same time, you could fight those in state capitals as opposed to the judicial system. But ultimately, what conservatives pulled off here potentially in June is a very concerted, multi-decade, multi-generational effort.
Can you do me a favor and make me a moderator so I can
Oh.
off the box?
Sure
and
thing.
We have a couple questions. Matthew DeVoe says, what's the cutoff for being rooted in history and tradition?
See, that's unclear, DeVoe. Like, Alito just throws that out there, and a lot of people have issues with his draft, including conservatives, where he's just like, well, is it rooted in tradition? And they're like, well, but also, like, gay marriage just came out in 2012, 2013. That's not rooted in tradition. Like, interracial marriage, that was a relatively new thing. That the court basically, the Loving decision of 50 years ago. So what is rooted in tradition, Alito? Remember, we began this country for the first 80 years with slavery, and then overturned that. So ultimately, there are, probably going to be major changes to the final decision that Alito puts out there, because he opens the door to a lot of questions when it comes to rooted in tradition, and you bring up a good point there.
Kathy Yu says, what are you hearing about trigger laws to ban abortions entirely and restrict IVF treatment?
So the trigger laws right now exist in a number of states, including, I was looking up today, there's 13 states that pass trigger laws where there's no actual plan. And trigger laws meaning if Roe v. Wade is overturned, abortion is banned in the state. And then there's no details on how they're going to enforce this, what they're going to do about it. Here are the 13 states with trigger laws where Business Insider actually today reached out to Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kentucky. Like, okay, how are you going to follow through with this? Will the district attorneys prosecute women? How will you handle doctors? How will you handle all these various scenarios? And the states are like, yeah, we're going to get back to you on that. So at the end of the day, it does appear that nearly half the country, I put up a bunch of maps yesterday, where you're going to have some sort of major limits or ban on abortion. When it comes to exceptions, that remains unclear, especially given some of the language. Michigan's a good example where there's a trigger law, but not intentional. The 1931 law on the books in Michigan that banned abortion, that was basically overturned by Roe in 73. No one bothered to update the laws in Michigan after that. So now Michigan, which has a Democratic governor, is like, oh, on the books, abortion's going to be banned here. But you have the Attorney General and the Governor of Michigan who are like, yeah, we're not going to enforce it, even though technically it goes into effect, a law written in 1931. So a lot of complicated laws in many states. They're checking it out. As far as IVF is concerned, as far as birth control is concerned, I don't see explicit movements. Even when you talk to folks in the pro-life movement, they were not necessarily prepared for this immediately, though they are, they are motivated by this to move on to the next steps. And I know that the fetuses related to IVF have been an issue that certain folks in the pro-life community have brought up, but you don't see the overwhelming amount of support that you saw for the overturning of Roe initially. So it really will depend on what, it's up to each state now, right? So if you think that your state, whether you're in Missouri or you're in Nebraska or you're in Montana, you think the majority of people might vote. I mean, I saw a question like, will they ban condoms? I was like, I don't see condom bans happening. I don't know any popular support for that, or birth control for that matter. So again, this is left as an issue to voters in each of those states. And so if you look at polling, the latest polling I've seen is that birth control is overwhelmingly popular. So are, prophylactics like, condoms. So is, IVF. Now, how do you deal with IVF when you have extra embryos, etc.? I don't know how states are going to deal with that, and we're going to have to watch that. You did see a couple governors, Sarai, you're saying destruction of embryos could be easily penalized in some states. That's a question. You did see governors over the weekend being asked about this in political shows, including the governor of Mississippi, who's like, this is not something we're thinking about right now, but they didn't rule it out, right? And I know that sort of language concerned folks. Seeing, governors who are like, we're not prioritizing that right now.
You have so many comments on this, and I honestly think that it deserves its own specific live, because people are asking about the certain states, and saying that there's news out of this state, news out of that state, and I think, and even someone said you should talk to Sharon Tess. So
we talked to Sharon last Tuesday.
Tuesday, but I think that this deserves its own separate live. But let me just ask some of the questions.
Sure.
Keishan says, what's the best way to get involved to make change?
Well, I presume make change on the side if you're on the pro-choice side, abortion rights side. I mean, listen, I think that there's a lot of Democrats who are sort of figuring out what to prioritize right now on this issue. You are unlikely to see anything out of Washington. The House has passed a bill to legalize abortion federally. They don't have the votes in the Senate, so it never will quite get to Biden. And there's a scenario where if Republicans take over the White House again, Senate, etc., they'll then reverse that. So ultimately, this is a state-by-state fight. I know that one thing that a lot of folks on the abortion rights, pro-choice side are focused on right now is helping women in states where they will likely see the procedure banned, and create ways to be able to help women there who are seeking abortion should the precedent of Roe get overturned end of June. So I know that there are certain organizations that are looking at fundraising and figuring out procedures, methods, etc. In order to help women. I know that in New York State and other places, they're looking at Connecticut, I think, is another one where they're going to try to help women in other states get there. So, those are among the grassroots things that I think people are looking at.
I can't believe that I'm not hearing more about, I post about this myself, but I can't believe a lot. And I can't believe that I'm not hearing more about this. Like with the Black Lives Matter movement, it's like everyone had the black squares. I mean, it seems to me that it's like falling on deaf ears in my circles.
Yeah, as in people aren't talking about it at all, or they talked about it and then they kind of
talked about it, but they just talk but it's not. I feel personally that there should be more. There should be more done. There should be more protests. There should be more. More people standing up if they believe in women's rights.
Yeah, it's up to. I mean, listen, I will say that one of the reasons you're seeing what you're seeing with the case with these justices, etc., is again a multi-decade year effort, a very organized, concerted effort through the years to get this done. And if liberals want to fight back in some way, they have to get organized and they have to take this seriously and they have to stay on it and not expect that those are going to be some sort of immediate fix. And so that's just something that I would say to folks, if you're interested in this issue, there's a lot of people who are out there, a lot of organizations, and you'll have to figure out which organization you want to work with, that you support, that you want to raise money for, etc. Because it's a combination of state politicians, federal politicians, nonprofits, etc.
I think it's not enough just to donate to Planned Parenthood. I think both men and women need to be on the streets every night protesting. One night at Barclays ain't gonna cut it. So these are the questions.
Yeah.
Buttram says, Torrin Billy says, anyway, we can ask politicians to consult physicians on the impact, or are there lobbying groups who just stand with basic medical needs?
Listen, if you're interested in your state in pursuing a certain end when it comes to abortion laws, then your state legislators are the people to turn to on that stuff. There's certainly organizations that are lobbying, state capitals, and you can talk to folks about that as well. But ultimately, if you want to make your opinion heard and you want legislators to do things like consult with doctors and get medical advice before they pass some of these quick laws that they're trying to turn, then you should talk to them about it. That's important. I know that everyone has full-time jobs and whatever, but if there's an issue that's important to you, there are, I know a lot of people don't often pay attention to who they're voting for on the state ballot, but this is when it matters, right?
Right, yeah. Pearl says, didn't you post the other week that almost all countries in the world have some sort of ban/limits on abortion? Seems the U.S. is way more progressive on this matter than most of the civilized world. Yeah,
so when it comes to abortion laws, at least until a potential overturn of Roe, the U.S. had one of the most liberal policies when it came to abortion. In fact, in most of Europe, you're looking at 15-week laws. In fact, the Mississippi law, if the Roberts Compromise was to move ahead, if Justice Roberts can convince one of the other conservative justices to get with to get with the sort of compromise where we'll uphold Mississippi at 15 weeks, but still maintain Roe, that would put the U.S. in line. Most European countries are very much on the kind of first trimester, and then like major limits starting the second trimester. The 23-week standard that Roe had enacted was one of the more liberal standards in the world. And then, like, there's definitely, depending on the country you go to, prohibitions. Like, let's see, France was 16 weeks, Spain is 14 weeks, Portugal's 10 weeks, Germany's 14 weeks. What do we got? Ireland's at 12 weeks. And I could keep going. Serbia, 12 weeks. Italy, 90 days or 3 months. So what is that? Yeah, 12 weeks. Again, Austria. So Europe is kind of living in that first trimester. But in a complete overturn of Roe, you could see that some U.S. states, like California and New York, would have the most liberal policies in the world. And then some states would be up there with a lot of countries in, like, what do we got? Who completely bans it? Actually, even Brazil says to save a woman's life, to save a woman's life. Peru, save a woman's life. Mexico, save a woman's life. So I don't see many complete prohibitions. Egypt is one. Mauritania, Iraq, Madagascar. So, that would, some of the laws would put, like, the Mississippi's, the center of the world, up there with Suriname, Honduras, Dominican Republic, Laos. Anyway, those countries.
Now, maybe you do a live about the facts, because, like, for example, KG said, aren't they trying to make birth control only available to married people in Tennessee?
I haven't seen that. Tennessee birth control. I mean, listen, I think you're going to see a lot of state legislators. Here we go. Fact check, Tennessean. Let me unblock my ads here. Thanks for sticking with me here. So let's see what Tennessee's up to. So a new Tennessee law, which added criminal penalties to certain abortion restrictions, does not ban Plan B despite wide information misunderstanding. Governor Bill Lee signed the law last week, which has criminal penalties to doctors who are not physically present with the patient when prescribing abortion medication. Abortion medication and Plan B or other morning after medications are not the same thing. Anyway, so of course, Plan B is not an abortion pill. There's other types of pills that you take longer to cycle that are considered more similar to abortion-style pills. So anyway, I would just be careful, guys, because there's a lot of misinformation going around, and make sure you are following up and reading up on your state laws when they're passed. Because remember, even when state laws are passed, sometimes there's amendments passed last second, etc. So, and there's a lot of very vocal sides saying things on each side, and as you know, don't believe everything you read on social media.
Okay, so just one last thing there. Cookie LB says the graph you shared a couple days ago from the New York Times on the number of women that would be affected is astonishing. I'm in Texas, 6 million women here. I'm scared to have another child.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's, I'm trying to pull up that New York Times statistic if I can. Let's see, where is this chart? Oh, here we go. So this is a chart showing the number of women. Hold on, can I flip? There we go. So this is the number of women of reproductive age in states where you can see a ban or restrictions on abortion. You see up there, Texas is at number 1. Florida has the second most number of women of reproductive age, followed by Ohio, Georgia. The states in yellow there are the states North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Kansas, where there's Democratic governors and laws pre-Roe that banned the procedure. In most of the states, you might have Republicans in control of one part of the legislature. But that gives you a sense of the states where the most number of women would be impacted by this. That makes sense.
Carrie just said, I was molested, and were I to be impregnated, I would have committed suicide. So it is, and that, and Carrie, it's not just you. It is so many women, and
so listen, this is the court saying we're getting on this, and it's up to the states, and so now, you know, depending on where you live, you're going to see your state go in a different direction. So we'll see. And by the way, that all assumes that what we saw leaked from February into the Politico last week holds through the end of June. We'll see what goes on. One thing I wanted to note tonight that the Senate has passed unanimously is that they've approved extra security for Supreme Court justices. This comes over the weekend as we saw protests outside Kavanaugh's house, outside Roberts' house. No violence, but there are concerns that given how this issue is being discussed in some circles, there is a concern that justices could be targeted and their families. So basically, the Senate, and now it heads to the House and the President, where they'll likely, the House will pass it, the President will sign it. Justices will get the same amount of security that senior administration officials as well as members of Congress get. There's always been some sort of security for justices, but never at the level of other officials. But now, given how political things have gotten and how extreme things are right now when it comes to this case and just general rhetoric around the court, the government is determined, they got to give these justices and their family members security.
R.L. DeRussa says, why is Congress so reactive? Knowing this day may come, hard to believe no congressional politicians thought of a bill to codify abortion over the last 25 years. We would not be here today.
So remember, you need a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate to do that. And so then you would need a filibuster-proof amount of Democrats. The last time you saw that, President Obama was president. So some people are saying, well, why didn't Obama have the foresight to codify Roe when he was president and had the votes in the House and Senate to do that? So some folks are critical of the Democrats and liberals for just saying like, oh, well, the courts will uphold Roe over time. So that would have taken foresight. Remember, at the same time, this was always a fear, and you did have folks within the Obama White House that tried to get RBG to retire early, being like, yo, you need to retire early, because if you die and a Republican is president, you're going to get replaced by a conservative. And she's like, nope, I'm not leaving the court. And so she ended up dying in the last couple of months of the Trump presidency, and she was replaced by Amy Coney Barrett, who might be the fifth vote to overturn Roe. So
Who lied on? Well, she lied.
You could look at a number of the justices and say that they.
No, they did.
Yeah. Well, listen. Alito was asked about a letter he wrote in 1985 saying he was proud of his work on pro-life. He said, "Well, that's behind me. That was a different period of time." At one point, Gorsuch said that Roe is the law of the land. Clarence Thomas said he had no agenda on Roe. Amy Coney Barrett said she can't pre-commit. Kavanaugh called Roe settled. So, yes, you could say you could interpret it multiple ways, but you could also easily interpret this as being like, you guys clearly knew what you were going to do, and you told the Senate other things.
Yeah.
Yep. So, anyway, but to your question, why is Congress reactive? Why is the sky blue? Why is water wet? Why do fish swim? Congress reacts. They're not really a proactive bunch over there.
Allie says, can't the justices be fired for lying under oath? So oath means nothing, she said.
I mean, listen, you would have to have a Senate majority impeach a Supreme Court justice. Given that it's a 50-50 Senate and Democrats are likely to lose seats in the fall, I don't see it happening.
Okay. Well, This is really depressing.
Well,
is there anything...
I'm just here with a reality check for everybody.
No, I know, and it is so depressing.
Well, and I would say that we also have depressing for a number of Americans, and it's also there's a group of Americans, and I hear from them, and they follow me here too, who are very excited that this is the end. This is for them an achievement of 50 years of movement. So, I mean that's the country we're in right now. And you're seeing it in some of the election results. We're seeing it in some of the state-by-state situations and some of the laws being passed. You have Republican supermajorities in a bunch of states that are passing some of these trigger laws, etc. So, all right, what's our next topic, Al?
LaFronda asked about Putin and Victory Day, but we also have a lot of messages about baby formula. Oh,
okay. So let's talk baby formula. CVS, Target, Walgreens all announced limits on baby formula purchases. That is, if you can find them. By the way, a lot of you are sending me pictures of Targets with empty shelves. I know that it's been, that other places have shortages, but it seems like Target really tough place to go. Don't waste your time with Target in a lot of states right now, based on the pictures you're sending me of empty store shelves. At Walgreens and CVS, you can have 3 products of formula. At Target, you have 4. That is, if you can find them. As of the end of April, 40% of popular baby formula brands were sold out of stores. It was 31% weeks prior. There's a few states, guys, where 50% of baby formula is sold out. That's Tennessee, Texas, Missouri, Iowa, South Dakota, and North Dakota. Some places like San Antonio, 57% out. Memphis, Nashville, 52%. Des Moines, Houston, 50% out. We went into the newsletter this morning a little bit on why. A part of it started with supply chain issues during the pandemic, and then it was totally exacerbated by the whole Abbott nutrition recall for Similac, Alimentum, and Elicare formulas at a Michigan plant. The FDA said that Abbott failed to maintain sanitary conditions there. There have been a couple of cases of infant deaths. They haven't been directly linked yet. There was no positive test for salmonella at those plants, but the FDA had a whistleblower there, and they thought it was concerning enough to shut things down to a certain extent. Now, the FDA is trying to get that plant back up and running. In the meantime, Abbott is trying to get Similac production up at other plants and shipping formula from Europe. And a lot of people, I've been talking to folks like, turning to Facebook groups, turning to Instagram influencers, etc. for information, for help. Somebody said today that they had relatives in some, I think it was Wisconsin or Michigan, trying to ship stuff down to Alabama or Mississippi. So, I know it's a full court press right now if you're, a young parent and you are looking to get formula for your kid.
Mura0055 says, is there any hope for the formula shortage? Literally have a spreadsheet calculating formula needs for my 7-month-old.
Yeah.
And then she commented, as if we needed more stress as new parents.
Yeah, it was really the suckiest headline coming out of Mother's Day. It's Mother's Day weekend, and there's a lot of young moms, and your biggest concern is going on a Facebook group and saying I need this hypoallergenic formula in the state of X. Does anyone know anybody who can ship me stuff? And so I know that is what many parents and moms are having to turn to right now. As far as when this will end, I've been looking around, guys. Nobody has a date certain. And, hoping that given how loud this has become, especially in the last week, that, there's going to be some sort of, I don't know whether the federal government's going to get involved or state governments will get involved in terms of acquiring product abroad to ensure, that there's enough formula for moms out there. I know some people are I can do this for a few weeks, but this is going to get really, really rough. And I know that some of you are sharing information down the bottom of the screen there.
Rachel Lassiter says, if you're in Austin, Texas, you can donate breast milk to Mother's Milk Bank.
Yeah.
And Just Ford said, is there anything we can do to help with this formula issue?
So, if you're aware of where a product is, I know that there's a lot of moms that are desperate for information and product. And, I know some people are I found this product, but I don't, my kid doesn't do well with that product. Can I trade you, etc.? There's a lot of bartering going around. But unfortunately, I come to you this week. I don't have solutions for you. As I find out about resources, I will share them. We are talking, my partner Jill Wagner, who's working with me on the newsletter, is going to be interviewing an expert tomorrow for the Wednesday newsletter, breaking down what moms can do. So, I've heard you, and we'll have more of that in Wednesday's newsletter.
That's excellent, Mosh. Yeah. It's just horrible. It's horrible because, you just said, every baby needs different things.
And then some people were telling me that even their 5 or 6 year olds still need some level of formula, and so it's not just something that's immediately and it just it's a tough situation for a lot of moms out there, and my heart goes out to you guys.
Kate G said, we are also concerned about bringing life into the world, and there's literally no food for them.
Yeah, I think that irony is not lost on many people on Mother's Day weekend, that you have the potential of overturning row, and that even then, and that'll of course hit the some of the most impoverished folks the most, and there's no baby formula in the store. Yeah.
You want to talk about Victory Day?
All right, so that's the formula situation, guys. As I hope to bring you good news on that, I will in the future. Hopefully, we do have some good news coming soon. Given what a priority this is, I would hope, there were what was the Defense Production Act, where the government got involved, or there was a debate about government getting involved in building masks and other things during COVID. I mean, maybe there's a way for maybe the feds get involved in that way. I don't know. But that's certainly something to, see if there's, I don't know. I know there's a lot of you tonight who are like, what can I do? What can I do? And I was like, well, there's politicians you could call and see, and raise it. But I do know there's a couple of young moms in Congress, and I would imagine they are among several folks who are probably saying, what can we do about this? What do we got? They got us toilet paper, Melissa says. Yeah, I know. It feels like we got more about the toilet paper shortage than we have about the formula shortage.
You should have posted a question box for questions moms have to give to Jill.
Yeah. In fact, Jill just posted that tonight. I got it.
Perfect.
We'll post tonight questions you're asking about the formula shortage, and we will try our best to get them answered. All right. So Russia, Ukraine, I got a couple questions on tonight. 75 days into the war, today was officially Victory Day in Russia. Not Victory over Ukraine Day, victory over the Nazi Germany Day, May 9th, 1945. And so typically this is a day of like major parades through Red Square, the Russians celebrating the victory over the Nazis many, many years ago. A lot of speculation in recent days was... there was a lot talked about when it came to Putin, what he was going to say today, what he was going to do today, give us an indication of this war, almost Groundhog style. Is he going to see a shadow? Is this war going to last 6 more weeks? Not. And Putin didn't really give us anything. He didn't declare victory in Ukraine. By the way, there's not much of a victory to declare. He continues to get pummeled by the Ukrainians, though he's holding that territory in the east and the south. 75 days in, he still hasn't conquered a city officially. You could say he sort of conquered Mariupol, but not really. Not officially. It appears that his generals continue to have problems in the ranks. He's got problems with equipment. Even his parade in Red Square didn't have the amount of military equipment that he had in recent years, because guess what? He's lost a lot in Ukraine, or needs a lot down there. Though he did ramp out, he brought out his ballistic missiles, etc., etc. So he did a whole shtick about how Ukraine's Nazis, and he's fighting Nazis, and Russia's the victim, and that was basically what he did on Victory Day. But no indication here as to what he's going to do when it comes to the war. It looks like it'll continue to, stay that way. A big question a lot of people are asking is how can he try to declare victory? Some people were hoping actually he would declare victory today, being we took Donbass back, the eastern provinces, and then be done with this. But he did not. I know there's a lot of you are asking about his health. Guys, there's all a bunch of rumors right now. Does he have some sort of tumor, some sort of cancer, etc.? There's a lot of murmurs out there. Can't confirm any of it. He's one of the kind of most closed-off leaders in the world. Even his deputies and people around him don't know that much about him or aren't allowed to talk that publicly about him. And if you leak about him, you face ramifications, unlike in other countries where the leaks don't matter to a certain extent. So that's what we know over there right now. It did appear that more civilians got out of Mariupol over the weekend, though.
Did you talk about you too in Kiev?
Oh, and then in Kyiv over the weekend, everyone was there. Trudeau was there from Canada. Jill Biden was there. And U2, Bono and The Edge performed in the subway. Now, mind you, there's less in terms of offensive weapons being targeted at Kyiv right now. The Russians made their attempt. They couldn't take Kyiv. They pulled back. They're focusing mainly over in the eastern provinces, the Donbass provinces. So some of you are like, how did all these people get into Kyiv? How is Kyiv so, safe suddenly? Listen, it's not the safest place in the world, but they've stabilized it to a certain extent because the Russians are we can't take Kyiv. The Ukrainians fought us off here. We're going to focus on this other part of the country. Keep in mind, Ukraine's the size of Texas. So it's they're all focused over there in, I don't know, name it, Galveston. And Kyiv is over in Waco or even farther, San Antonio. So think about it that way. my Ukraine to Texas geography comparisons might be slightly off, but you get the point.
Oh, Jill just joined. Hi, Jill.
Jill's on. By the way, Jill, we've had good conversations in regards to formula earlier. We'll solicit questions, but there's been a pretty robust conversation.
Was there anything?
A lot of moms sharing their concerns.
Mosh, was there anything this week that surprised you in the news?
Surprised me in the news this week?
Yeah.
Good question. Trying to think offhand. What's been the most surprising thing?
I don't know.
I don't know offhand. I mean, we kind of have come to expect like the more extreme, right? Like I guess a part of me was like, whoa, there's like hundreds of people, marching to Supreme Court justices' houses. We haven't seen that before, but like, does that surprise you in this day and age? Probably not. Russia continuing to fail in Ukraine doesn't surprise me. What else do we have? The continued supply chain issues doesn't surprise me. I think some people have been taken aback by the markets that that continues. That we're now edging towards getting to pre-pandemic stock markets. Like some of the tech gains the past couple of years almost entirely eliminated, 75%, 90% down from 2 years ago. All the wins. So but then again, the market has been. We know this. There's been so much money out there that it was about time for some sort of correction on the stock market, which has been basically going at it since the going straight up in some cases since the Obama years. So we're looking at 12, 13, 14-year bull market since the 2008-2009 recession. So we were majorly overdue for some sort of correction. Melissa says that Dave Chappelle show, that was surprising. Somebody getting on stage, the security at concerts still post Will Smith and Chris Rock, and that was the Oscars, hasn't improved. There's a BuzzFeed story I posted earlier today about that it's basically one security service that handles security at every single concert, and the security team that handled and company that handled Dave Chappelle's show is the same company that handled the Travis Scott show at Astroworld. So there are a lot of questions about this. Basically, there's a monopoly, and hold on, let me pull it up. Security, Chappelle, Travis Scott. What's it called?
What?
Contemporary Services Corporation, CSC, one of the largest event security firms in the country, has come under scrutiny for the Dave Chappelle attack. They also provide security for the Astroworld disaster. They also worked the Harvest Festival around 91 in Vegas. That's where the 60 people were killed at the Mandalay Bay a couple years ago, that mass shooting. They worked the Once Upon a Time LA Festival where there was someone killed. So there are questions about the Contemporary Services Corporation and why they continue to be the go-to for event security. So that's certainly something that is going to come up. But yeah, I guess that was surprising, among other things.
Did you also know that the Maryland, Andy Warhol's Maryland sells for $195 million, shattering auction record for an American artist. This is if you want to...
The alert. So I posted about this earlier today. They were hoping to get $200 million for this painting. This is one of a handful of Marylands in the world. I think there's 5. $195 million. What do we got? This is the Shot Sage Blue Maryland. This is Christie's, this auction season. It's the most expensive painting of the 20th century. This is a big achievement, a Christie's specialist says. This has surpassed the $110 million price tag of a skull painting at Sotheby's in 2017, and a Warhol car crash painting that sold for $105 million. Al, do you have the painting up there?
Yeah, you want to see it?
Actually, I think I have it saved in my stuff from earlier. What do we got here? There we go. Here's Maryland. Yeah.
We got a lot of bots tonight, Mom.
We got some bots tonight?
Yeah.
With larger following comes more bots, right?
I think did you take me off as a moderator?
How could I then?
Oh, no. Okay,
no.
I'm good.
No, I think you're there.
I'm good.
Yeah. So that's what I got. That painting, if you wanted it, $195 million, folks. So the markets, I think, certainly have been one of the more surprising headlines. Maybe not to everyone on Wall Street. Certain people have been hedging against this, but there we go. What else?
I don't know. I'm just here getting rid of the box. I can barely ask any questions. Hold on. Let me just keep...
We're trying to get rid of some of these people?
Yeah, just a lot. What else did people say? Oh, the $35 Goodwill buy. That was the bust.
Oh, the Roman bust. That's crazy. That like somebody, it really goes to show you, by the way, a couple of things, folks. One, you can go to a garage sale and maybe find something worth millions of dollars that's 2,000 years old. And two, the horse that won the Kentucky Derby was an 80-1 odds that wasn't even in the initial group of horses, and actually another horse had to drop out for that horse to get into the Kentucky Derby last second, and then at 80-1 won the Derby. So I don't know if any of you made big money on the Derby horse, but 80-1, pretty impressive.
Holiday Boyd says, I'm late to the party. Sorry if this was covered.
Yeah.
Can we talk about all the books coming out post-Trump with bombshells that would have been helpful during his presidency?
A lot of people are like, when it comes to like media reporters or officials who save their big scoops for like a year or two or more after administration, what's up with that? Why are they trying to sell books and not trying to save democracy?
Talk about what the books are.
The latest one that a lot of people are talking about is it was featured on 60 Minutes over the weekend. Mark Esper, the former defense secretary for Trump, revealing a few things, including Trump asking for 200,000 troops on the border of Mexico and asking officials of the Pentagon if we could just bomb certain parts of Mexico, the drug lords, etc., and then like pretend like it wasn't us. Those were among the things that Esper reveals in his book. There's a couple other things, and of course, Esper's been fighting with DOD for a while because he wanted to put this book out for a while, and he was fighting with DOD, who was like, "We got to keep some of this stuff classified." So I know, in fact, some of you have been writing to me, being like, we're dealing with the classification of his book here at DOD, and it's a lot of back and forth. What do we got here?
I just want to thank everybody who's buying badges still. Liz Couture, Rachel
thank you guys.
Mom Ursula. The truth is, like, this is your side hustle.
Yeah.
So, and Mosh is so busy and freaking burnt out. So please, like, we just want to thank you all when you Venmo, when you do this. It really means a lot when you buy badges. So thank you from both of us.
Thank you guys for supporting this. Keep trying to make this full-time thing, and thankfully we now have the newsletter and have subscribers, and some of you are on Patreon, some of you are on badges, so etc. So thank you for your support for this account and what we do. I think we got, Al, I think somebody asked me in the questions earlier tonight about did we have the right tagline for the merch. And I think we got a couple taglines last week, right?
Yeah, I think you like the precedented one, right?
I'm ready for precedented times.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
So one of the other things Esper puts out in his book is that Trump apparently inquired about shooting protesters during the George Floyd murder protests, and whether he could have the military in the streets shooting protesters. And at the Defense Department, he was like, guys, this is crazy. And here is Esper. The president was enraged. He thought that the protests made the country look weak, made us look weak, and us meant him. He wanted to do something about it. We reached that point in the conversation where he looked frankly at General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and said, can't you just shoot them in the legs or something? It was a suggestion and a formal question. We were all taken aback at that moment. At this issue just hung very heavily in the air. So you might ask, so why didn't he bring this up at the time? Well, he was the Secretary of Defense. And a lot of them will tell you there's been a number of folks who served time in the Trump administration who said, I viewed my role there to prevent terrible things from happening to the country. So their view is that immediately releasing that information was not going to be of purpose or helpful. In fact, holding on to information and trying to ensure that, like, the U.S. Army wasn't deployed to go shoot people in the legs, or 200,000 troops, which he said we don't even have, were sent to the border, or that we didn't bomb Mexico. Those were among the things that they were trying to handle internally and not just reveal to the public because they felt like revealing to the public wasn't going to serve any purpose if that then meant that they would be fired and replaced by people who might follow through with those orders.
Leah Sass says, and this is a surprise to no one.
Yeah, well, listen, I think that there's been enough leaks from that White House where, when you see some of these headlines, you're like, well, I feel like I might have heard that already, etc., because you might have heard that already, or it just might be similar to other headlines you saw from there. Here's a question that NPR posed to him. Why did you stay with the Trump administration despite wanting to leave? Mark Esper, former Secretary of Defense, says, I wrestled with this a lot. At the end of the day, it came down to two things. If I left, I was very concerned about what would happen and would some of these dangerous ideas be implemented. And secondly, this is Esper, if I left, who would replace me? And I was fairly confident that the president would replace me with an uber loyalist and would do exactly what he wanted. And so I thought the right thing to do, the greater good, my duty was to stay and serve the country. So this is Mark Esper answering your question as to why he stayed and why he held on to this information until a book a couple years later.
That's what all of the people who worked in the White House say. Yeah. Like even the woman who was just on The View who worked for Melania, the communications. Yeah. That was.
Yeah, I was here to prevent catastrophe from happening. Yeah. Is a line you'll hear from several people who worked in the administration, and then you have people who are the opposite, who are like, I was there because I believed in what he did, and are also potentially on Team Trump 2024.
Kay Shim says, do you think Trump will run in 2024? And the truth is you have some knowledge about this, right?
I think my understanding is he's leaning towards it. He's not completely convinced.
From your sources?
I have information that he's leaning towards it. But it changes on any given day, folks. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I mean, one thing that is that we do know is that if enough Republicans run against him, they could do the same thing that happened in 2016, where there's too many candidates to split up the anti-Trump vote or the non-Trump vote, the Republican Party, and Trump can start winning primaries with 25 to 30% of the vote. By the way, you're seeing this in a number of states, Pennsylvania, Ohio. You're having some primaries here where if you're a Republican in those states, you're some of the most, Missouri, where some of the most extreme candidates are getting through with about 30% of the primary vote, and might have trouble in some of these kind of more purplish states winning in the fall. We'll see if the momentum continues to be behind the Republicans' backs, but that is certainly something that you're seeing, especially when it comes to some of these state races, that folks who are more in line with former President Trump are winning primaries in places like Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania will be very interesting to watch. Dr. Oz currently has an edge over there. Trump was there over the weekend supporting him. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. And then what does that mean for the fall in a state like Pennsylvania? Can a Dr. Oz win, become the next U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania?
Melissa says, if Biden and Trump both run, we are literally screwed.
I know there's a lot of concern about, who, that the 2024 is a repeat of 2020, and some folks are ready for change. There are scenarios where they could happen, but they're all very unlikely right now, folks. That said, we live in unprecedented times, so be my guest.
Kate G said, what about his putting out there he won't be able to because of health issues?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the man's waited his whole life to be president. And you think he's going to just stop being president after 4 years by choice? Something really significant has to happen to him, or a major conversation needs to happen before he would decide not to run for re-election. You're never more powerful running for president when you're already president, right? Like, we have a tradition, especially in recent years, of re-electing our presidents. If you look at who, so Nixon got re-elected, Carter didn't. Reagan got re-elected, Bush didn't. Clinton got re-elected, Bush 43 got re-elected, Obama got re-elected. And remember, Trump was 60,000 votes from being re-elected, despite everything in 2020. So if you look at Clinton, 43, Obama, and then Reagan, 4 of the last 6 presidents got re-elected. So, But then again, we sort of zig and zag in this country. But we don't typically zig and zag every 4 years. But given how partisan things are, you might start to see a lot more kind of 4-year presidents.
People are asking who the VPs would be.
Well, right now it'd be Kamala. Trump, I think Trump would go with a woman. And so you have like Kristi Noem out of South Dakota. You have Nikki Haley out of South Carolina. Are among the people he could potentially go with. But you know, Trump, he likes to make it a show. It'll be like The Apprentice. He'll audition folks, and he felt pressured into Mike Pence last time. This time around, he's like, I mean, that's some people's fear, and some people's excitement. Is this would be really Trump unleashed? What does that mean? Who knows? But I think he would want to go with a woman. And I think that, I mean, I don't know. It would depend on what he feels he needs politically. But for him, it's all about loyalty. And he felt that Pence wasn't loyal to him at the end, right? So you would need somebody who really drinks the Kool-Aid.
S. Miller says, never has there ever been a better time for a viable, moderate third-party candidate. And Sarah says, what are the odds of an independent having a chance in the next presidential election?
No. There's no infrastructure for a third party in this country. There hasn't been. Now, if you look at our politics, the vast majority of the country lives somewhere in the middle. And the two sides tend to be controlled by their extremes. And so I think it would be a popular thing, but the infrastructure in this country is built around a two-party system. It's been that way for, we've been a two-party system effectively since the founding. There have been attempts at third parties through time. Teddy Roosevelt made his attempt after his time initially in office, starting a third party. I mean, most recently you saw Ross Perot get to 27% in the 90s. So, I mean, I guess you could see somebody, significant play that game. But at the end of the day, the Republicans and Democrats really control the levers of power.
So before we close out, I just want to make mention of what we watched this weekend.
Oh, Tommy Lee and Pamela?
Yes.
I don't know if any of you guys have seen this.
Pam and Tommy
on Hulu?
On Hulu.
Fascinating story. This is based on a 2014, was it Rolling Stone story or GQ story? But basically the history of the Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee sex tape and how it became public. What was it, Al? 6-part? 8-part series? 8-part series. I'll put this in the newsletter on Friday. I think we both were just taken aback by the entire thing. Rebecca Wynn says, excellent show. It's just so interesting. All these shows that have come out, like these things from the 90s that like you sort of remember. And then like when you actually look at it, you're like, wait, that's how that went down? And so ultimately,
Seth Rogen
plays the contractor.
The carpenter.
The carpenter contractor who was like working on their house. And as a revenge, I won't reveal too much.
Yeah, don't reveal too much.
But basically, Seth Rogen plays a significant role in the show. It just shows you that, like, and also was very interesting, for those of you who watch, like the history of sex tapes. That like the Pamela sex tape sort of destroyed her career, but then a few years later, or limited her career. A few years later, Paris' sex tape and then later Kim Kardashian's sex tape have a different impact on them. So that's very interesting on kind of how. Cultural mores, society, late night comics, etc., what sex tapes did for various people's popularity, I think is a fascinating thing.
Jem Cavoy says Pam is now doing her own version. She didn't want that version to be made.
Yeah. I think Britney Spears is also working on versions of her own documentary that she didn't like that initial New York Times version.
She's doing a book too, I think.
Yeah. And by the way, it's par for the course that Pamela now has a documentary about the tape that she didn't want released, and now it's a documentary that she didn't, participate in. So unfortunately for her, it's a tough go.
I thought it showed her in a nice light.
That she was basically an innocent victim, and I mean, listen, she
listen,
made a choice.
She made silly choices.
She chose to marry Tommy Lee.
Yeah, dated crazy men, right?
But she also didn't deserve what she deserved.
She seems like a nice person.
She seemed like a nice person from Canada who got caught up in certain things.
Yeah.
I mean, the lawyers on the other side made a point, like you were on 16 Playboy covers, so, there's a whole bunch you can go into in terms of roles, responsibilities, what they, but ultimately no one deserves to have their private belongings shared publicly out there and it be declared public domain. That to me was one of the more surprising things. That
Ariel Rivka says making that show without her consent wasn't cool.
Yeah. No, Pamela, wasn't she was hanging out with Julian Assange recently?
Yes.
Pamela Anderson.
She likes bad guys.
Kid Rock.
Oh my goodness.
She has a type.
Anyway, we enjoyed it.
She has a type. Yeah, anyway, guys, if you're looking for an 8-part Hulu documentary and a little 90s nostalgia, also great soundtrack on that show.
Great soundtrack.
Great soundtrack. Like a lot of random music from the 90s. That you're like, oh, I remember that song. I kind of enjoy that song.
We had fun. We made the playlist for your 40th birthday this weekend.
Yeah, we have a playlist, 4.5 hours of nostalgia from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today.
I've been getting a lot of DMs about people enjoying the playlist, so we'll have to post it again.
It's I feel like we can still hone the playlist.
Okay.
And polish the playlist.
We'll have some of your Hebrew.
Somebody out was like asking about Paris Hilton Stars Are Blind.
Oh, you love it.
They're like, I'm surprised that you put Stars Are Blind
one of Mosh's
on your
favorite
soundtrack.
songs.
And I'm like, there's something about the song that I like in a 4.5 hour mix.
Oh, Regan liked the Miley Cyrus version of Like a Prayer.
That was good. That was a good find by Alex.
Oh, Melissa says, I am loving your playlist.
Heather Grant makes a good point here. She chose to be on the Playboy covers. This doesn't lead to implicit consent to perceived equal explosion. I completely agree with you, Heather.
So read it again, because for the people who are listening, read the comment.
So basically, the comment by Heather Grant 11111 is Pamela Anderson chose to be on the Playboy covers. This doesn't lead to implicit consent for perceived equal exposure in the tape. And I think I completely agree with your point on that. And I tried to say that earlier, apparently ineloquently, is that just because she did that, that was the point the other side was trying to make, doesn't mean that she had the right for her private videotape with her husband to be revealed and become public domain and be put on websites everywhere. But it also goes to show you like how nascent the internet was then. You know, like literally they're like, wait, what's the internet? Like, how does the internet work?
Yes.
Remember? Like, it just shows you kind of where the internet was with dial-up in the mid-90s and like, what's this thing? And like, you can put videos on it and what are the rules? And unfortunately, she felt victim to all of that.
So S. Miller says, please join Mosheh tomorrow night. Do you want to talk about what you're doing?
S. Miller has a group that I'm addressing tomorrow night. We'll get details and we'll post those for folks. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
State of politics and media in this country.
What you talk about best?
What I talk about best. But she's been very kind to invite me to a group of that she belongs to talk about things, especially if anyway, we'll get you details.
Very nice. Wait, before we stop talking about Pam and Tommy, I just want to say that I did a deep dive and they show body parts on within the.
Oh yeah, don't watch the Hulu thing with your children.
Don't watch with your children. They show a lot of body parts, but they're all prosthetics. Her
Correct.
boobs and
Tommy's, schmeckle.
All
prosthetic. Yeah, I think it's like episode 3 or something with a prosthetic. Anyway, you see.
Then we also.
But it's par for the course for a Tommy Lee Pamela movie to see everything, or prosthetic everything.
And then we started watching Spring Awakening.
Yeah, the Spring Awakening reunion. If you know the Broadway show, Alex is a big fan of it.
Obsessed.
What was that? HBO Max.
Yes.
HBO Max has a reunion of Spring Awakening. They got together on Broadway 15 years after the show ended. Mm-hmm. Many of a lot of stars came out of that show.
Tyler Austin, Leah Michelle, Jonathan Groff.
A lot. Yeah. And so Magic Mike noting the headline from the Pamela and Tommy Lee show. Not only do they show it, but the penis talks. LOL. Yes. That was probably, Al, to answer the question, the most surprising thing of the week. They're like, in the Pamela and Tommy Lee thing, they made his penis talk to him in the show. Yeah, that was like, I had to rewind that. All right.
People are talking about the pipeline.
What pipeline? Keystone? Is there a headline on Keystone tonight? Let's look. Keystone pipeline. I like when you guys just pop in with random comments about stuff. I don't see any headlines on that tonight. Joe Manchin's been talking about it again. The Keystone XL pipeline would be an extension. There is the Keystone pipeline. There's been an extension from Canada to the U.S., and there's been talk about reconsidering it again. Now, again, even if you go to the State Department studies done under Trump, there is no sign that would have any significant impact on our gas prices. If that's the headline that you're
Jem says they're talking about inflation and gas prices.
Yeah. There's no evidence. Even a lot of conservatives and oil executives might tell you, like, there might be some efficiencies here and there on the margins, but like you're not talking about more than a couple cents potentially in terms of what impact the XL extension of the pipeline would have for you.
Mosh, is there anything else on your docket that you wanted to discuss that we did not address?
The only thing I wanted to bring up tonight, because I got asked about it by a couple of folks as we close out tonight, is the Filipino election. It's the return of the Marcos family. For those of you unfamiliar, the Marcoses ran Philippines in the 80s, were basically run out, stole between $5 and $10 billion, and that thousands of people were killed. Basically ran the country under martial law. Huge human rights violations. It was a disaster. Imelda Marcos, if you are familiar with her, she owned thousands of pairs of shoes. She also served some prison time. Anyway, their offspring, the son, Marcos Jr., called Bong Bong Marcos, won overwhelmingly the Filipino election. His running mate is Duterte's daughter. Duterte is the current effective authoritarian leader of the Philippines. The alliance between the Marcoses and the Dutertes officially has been made official. Some people are like, how does this happen? Well, the Marcos family, specifically the son who won, skipped the debates, basically limited media scrutiny of himself, and deployed a network of bloggers and influencers at his events, used social media really effectively as a misinformation tool, said that everything you heard about my family in the 80s is bullshit, and that ultimately, what people don't understand, it was a golden era for the Philippines, and a lot of the Filipino population is very young, doesn't remember that era, and was captivated by his message. So ultimately now you have 6 years of Duterte, now followed by 6 years of Marcos with Duterte's daughter. And so ultimately, I know I'm getting messages from some of you in the Philippines that are very concerned and are like, I don't know how we're going to be able to do this again. And the fact that they've effectively changed history and deleted all this, all these terrible times, and a lot of Filipinos, went with it.
Apparently, there's a great documentary on Hulu called The Kingmaker, and we should watch it about the family. About the Marcos family?
Yeah.
My brother said, thought the XL pipeline was about Tommy Lee.
Good one. But the Tommy Lee eventually embraced the reputation he got from those sex tape. XL pipeline. Marcos family. Yeah, you guys can read up on the Marcos family and what they did to the Philippines. But basically, you could see here a lot of, revisionist history happening, etc. And I know there's there's a few reporters left in the Philippines that are independent, and they're very concerned that, like, basically what's left of the democracy and freedoms will soon be go bye-bye in the Philippines, which is very unfortunate. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me on this Monday night. Al?
Thank you for joining me as well.
Yeah.
So this weekend's a big weekend, Mosh. We're celebrating your 40th birthday. So
a little early.
I think you were going to take the weekend off. Is that true?
Next Monday night? Potentially.
No, not next Monday night. Oh. This weekend, remember?
Oh, this weekend. Yeah. We'll, you might see some diminished posting this weekend. You might.
For your own brain.
Sanity. We'll see.
Health.
Yeah.
Mo merch updates. We are talking to people this week about getting you some merch. We should have answers for you within the next month and some amazing swag.
Swag's on the way, folks. Thank you very much.
So your actual birthday, I just want to say, your 40th birthday is May 21st. That is his actual birthday.
Yeah.
But we're celebrating this weekend. Jimmy, do you know Jimmy Levy? He said 40 million. Oh, I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know who he is.
Okay.
Never mind.
Anyway.
It was Joe.
So,
everyone saying happy birthday playlist, please. I'm going to post the playlist on my Instagram.
On your Instagram.
For you.
All right,
yeah.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. You really want to rush off this, don't you?
Take all the mental health breaks. Happy birthday. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, we'll get the. I just don't want to make a big thing because I feel like I really want to refine. I'm going to refine the playlist if we're putting it out there as the official playlist.
Oh, you're really getting.
I'm getting.
You're really getting like. Hey, who cares, Mosh?
Okay, fine.
Okay.
All good. All right, guys. Thank you all for joining this evening.
Do you want to take Stars Are Blind off?
No, Stars Are Blind stays.
So what's an example of a song that gets off?
I don't know. I gotta take a look at the. I'm in journalism. It's all about editing and re-editing. So I want to refine and keep refining till is the perfect.
What the unfortunate thing is
what
when I made it on Spotify and you still use Apple Music, so you can't edit it.
I'm such an elder millennial. I'm still an Apple Music person, not a Spotify person. But if somebody knows on Spotify, can you rearrange songs on a playlist? Or are you stuck in that order? We were frustrated by that this weekend, right, Al?
Yeah, you're stuck in that order.
Somebody knows is there a hack?
Unless you press shuffle,
but then you shuffle it.
Yeah.
But like once you put songs 1 through 5, can you ever bring 5 up to 1? And can you do that?
I'm sure you know people who work at Spotify, so you could ask.
I don't know.
I'll take lots of photos, says Tasha. I will. We're so excited to celebrate Mo. Right, Mo?
Yes. I am very excited.
Mo hates attention.
I do. It's a problem.
He hates it.
I don't
He hates it, but then when he's at the party, he's so happy. So it's like before the party it stinks, but during the party he's happy.
A lot of people are saying we can rearrange. Google it. All right, we will Google it. Thank you for the advice. Drag and rearrange.
There's no dragging on mine.
The 3 bars when you edit the playlist on the far right. I don't know. We were having some sort of lock issue. I actually love this on Instagram Live where you like crowdsource questions and you see like how people respond to stuff.
Your community is so awesome.
Thank you guys.
What party, Ashley says?
Everyone's invited to my 40th birthday this weekend. We'll send you the address.
Oh, Crystal says on the computer version.
On the computer Spotify, you could do it. On mobile Spotify, we were having the trouble. There you go, Al.
Thank you, Crystal. So
Thank you.
Should I get you Spotify for your birthday?
A Spotify account? Can we share an account, or do I need to get my own Spotify account?
No, I don't really I'd rather you get your own, and then we go on a family plan.
A family plan.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna work on that. Thanks for this. Has actually been the most productive part of the conversation this evening.
No.
And the most hopeful. A Zoom party, some people ask. Maybe we'll pop up.
That would be so fun to do like a Zoom for all your subscribers. That would be really fun.
A Zoom birthday?
Yeah.
Maybe.
A Zoom birthday.
I don't know. Maybe I'll come with some more hopeful news about the formula shortage.
Is there a Mo's 40th birthday playlist? Yes, Allie. Yes, there is. And I will be posting it on my Instagram, ALSALL, tonight. Mosh is just going to do a quick run through over it. But people are saying they like it, Mosh. So
all right, good. All right, good. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And look forward to seeing you next week.